Can you share with us some of your personal cleansing techniques, psychically, spiritually, that you do to prepare for a day dealing with people who are struggling with illness?
It is just through my own sadhana, as you stated, that I am able to keep my centeredness. And every morning for over 40 years now, I've had the blessing to do a Kundalini yoga sadhana and yoga and meditation. But my diet is very critical to my body, and I have refined my own diet over the last couple of years, and I'm now on a whole food plant-based diet, period. I've been vegetarian, had been vegetarian for 40 years, but I've come to realize the problems with milk, and so now I'm a whole food plant-based nutritionist, a nutrition doctor. What was the second question, Julie?
Well, I'd like you to give us 2-3 minute capsule of what to eat.
90% of our chronic disease is completely reversible with lifestyle. There is a magic medicine which can cure high blood pressure, cure diabetes, cure cancer, cure heart disease, prevent heart attacks. It's called food. Food directly talks to our genes. Our genes are not written in stone. So many of my patients come in saying, I got the gene for this. My father had heart disease. My mother had breast cancer. Our genes are not written in stone. There are many yous within the expression of your genes. And this is a science of medicine called epigenetics. Epi means above the gene. And food is one of the most powerful epigenetic molecules. With food, properly chosen, we can all stay proactively healthy. So I truly recommend organic food to everybody. The problems that we're having with pesticides, with the endocrine disruptors that are in food, such as phthalates that are in our personal care products, are directly linked to so many of the diseases in our society. And this obesity epidemic, which is now worldwide now, it's not just in the developed countries, it's in third world countries, is completely taking over with diabetes and heart disease and high blood pressure. We are at the point by the end of this decade where 1 out of 2 Americans will either be diabetic or pre-diabetic. And we don't have enough money to pay for the drugs for this. It's a huge epidemic. My friend Mark Hyman calls it the diabesity epidemic. As I said, for 40 years since I became a Sikh, since I began studying with Yogi Bhajan, I was vegetarian. But that includes milk and dairy products, yogurt, etc. And I took a course from Cornell University last year in whole food plant-based nutrition, taught by Colin Campbell and Caldwell Esselstyn and Dean Ornish and so on. And I've come to realize the problems that we have with milk and the milk industry. That food preparation has become an industry with cows with constantly suction machines on their udders. They keep them pregnant. And it's like these cows become a machine. They get mastitis. So as one of my friends says, milk is nothing but pus, blood, and sweat.
You know, one of the ways to start separating one's attachment to milk is to really examine one's connection with nurturants and where one gets that feeling that we had when we were first held by a mom that cared for us, that nursed us probably, maybe, hopefully, and where in your life are you getting that kind of nurturance, and is there some alternative to using milk as comfort food and finding nurturance in other sources?
One thing on milk I forgot to say. Reminder that humans are the only species in the world that drink cross-species milk. We have a problem with the statin drugs because people who are taking statin drugs, we're now recognizing, have a 40% higher rate of getting diabetes. In addition, diabetes drugs cause heart attacks. So we've got an opposite causing each other. As again, one of my friends called this, it's Farmageddon, is what's going on.
You've had a fascinating, long, winding road with great peaks. And how did you stay healthy within all of that? Were you always healthy? And if not, what worked for you in getting healthy?
Well, first of all, I'm going to see this gentleman tomorrow sometime. Anyway, I'm a first in line right here. But it's like all mankind. It's trial and error. You go to the top doctors, the ones that are in the magazines, and they put you on these medicines, and then you got to overcome the medicines. I woke up one morning smelling like a pharmacy, and I had to take 20 things 3 times a day, otherwise it's over. I just started to look at the side effects, and one side effect is suicidal tendencies. Another is depression. So now, how am I going to know that I'm going to be rid of what I went to the doctor for in the first place? I found myself at a threshold where I had all of this poison in my system, and I got cancer twice, which is now in remission. And I almost died, and I could almost swear I heard a voice saying, "Go back, it's not your turn." So since it has been my choice or somebody else's choice to keep me on the planet, if I don't do this every day, this service, and speak like this to whoever might be listening, I won't be here.
How do you, what do you recommend if you're on a plant-based diet, if an external stressor happens, like one's house burns down, or a relative dies, or God forbid something happens? What do you do with your diet to support you during those trying times?
As I said, it's harder to change your diet than to change your religion. I get massive stressors. I've got sick patients, I've got phone calls, but it doesn't even approach me that food is the answer to that question if I'm feeling under stress. So that's not food is not part of my stress management approach to life, or it's not part of my stress management tools. I do want to say that this whole understanding about protein and the whole idea of how much protein we need is really over the top. And in my opinion, and I know this is being videotaped, I believe that the meat industry has coordinated, shall we say, with governmental agencies to make these protein requirements astronomical so that you almost have to eat meat to get that much protein.
Worse than that.
And the World Health Organization has told us, and that's what I listen to because they're not a political organization, recommends 0.5 milligram of protein per kilogram of body weight. So for example, a man that weighs a 75 kilogram man is typically what we talk about, which is like a 160 pound man, needs approximately 32 grams of protein a day. You can get that from broccoli. So if you're going for these 70 and 80 grams of protein a day, then you're almost going to be forced to get animal products, either direct or indirect.
As a clinical psychotherapist in my own practice working with patients, a lot of people's self-talk is exposed. Stuff that comes up during their dreams, during their meditation, they journal it and they bring it in and they say, well, these are the loops that are going around in my brain and I can't seem to interrupt them. And that definitely ties in with how we eat. There are these little phrases, oh, but it's comfort food, and oh, but I need this, and this will give me energy. So let's talk a little bit about that, about what is some of your self-talk and how you've managed to interrupt it and to redirect it.
During my time at the Vipassana retreat, there was so much unresolved emotional pain and trauma, and so a lot of the self-talk was coming from that place. I guess I really value the practice of meditation because for me it's allowed me to understand that the identity is not who I am, it's a story that my mind's created that's largely based on those childhood emotional traumas. I mean, as far as self-talk goes, the distance or the non-attachment to that identity can allow one to simply watch that self-talk as noise and not be really attached to it or believe in it.
I feel that, I don't think that it's, a contradiction or anything like that. I think that all religions or spiritual practices. I think the essence of all of them are the same. I think it's love, compassion, understanding for the next person, and you can be a Catholic, you can go to Kundalini, you can be Jewish or whatever. I think that's the essence. So maybe it's sort of just finding that common ground that people can relate to. And also, too, it's like what works for me, the same thing with food. Like what works for me, everyone's got their thing, baby, and it's okay. You know, what works for me doesn't necessarily work for you, and I'm not going to try and make you see my way.
So many people in America, and we've noticed in Hollywood too, Kundalini has really exploded in popularity. It's helped many people with Western mindset transition and start integrating and including some of the wisdom of the East. And so can you give us a little historical context about Yogi Bhaja, please?
Well, I guess I'm the perfect person to answer that question, since I was very blessed to meet him when he first came, shortly after he first came to America. Yogi Bhajan was a man who was born in India. He was given yogic and spiritual training as a young boy, especially by his grandfather, but then had a normal job in India. He was working with the customs department, and then he had a spiritual master and a spiritual teacher who guided him, and so he began to teach yoga in his free time. And while he was working at his job. And then one day, he felt that one of the Sikh gurus, Guru Ram Das, advised him that he was to leave India and bring the teaching of Kundalini Yoga to the West. And so he moved to Canada, and then he moved to America, and he began teaching Kundalini Yoga, subsequently introduced all of us to White Tantric Yoga as well. And Kundalini Yoga is a form of yoga. It's one of the major forms of yoga that we have in Los Angeles that works with helping move the Kundalini energy up our spine into our higher centers so that we can stay in a higher state of consciousness all the time.
Well, this has been, it's rolled along, and such fascinating people to talk with, and I'm really grateful that you all came and that you decided to say yes to the email and show up and be here and bring all of your history and wisdom with you. Thank you so much.